Other stuff I'm working on, and a lot of it involves the press. I figure I've been dragged into it in a couple different ways. One is that I actually do remember civics in high school. This was a long time, this was actually like 40 years ago, because I really am that old, and sometimes feel older. But the deal is that the press and a investigative journalism community, which asks tough questions, that's really important for the survival of our country and for us to do really well. For example, the press asking tough questions would do things like keeping us out of wars fought for vanity and profit. That's one of the roles that a free press could play. Or during an election year, the press could expose the influences of, let's say, influence peddlers and the more predatory of lobbyists. So, for example, last week or so, I went to the Berkeley Symposium on Investigative Journalism. There were a number of big guys there, and I talked to a bunch of them. You know, there was a coterie from the Times there, some folks from a number of major papers, and people from the program at Berkeley, which is run by Lowell Bergman, who's part of the whole frontline team, and they're doing serious work. I haven't yet blogged about it, but I have a feeling the biggest problem for investigative reporting is that there are a lot of people who can do it and do it well. There's fewer because investigative reporting is expensive. Apparently there's a story involving a llama, so it's measured in llama years. I can't retell the story well, so I'll make Jeff do it. He can look it up. But the deal is that investigative reporting is hard, but doable. The hard part is that, as far as I could tell, speaking as a civilian, often a story is reported and it'll be in the papers for a day and then disappear. For example, play a token role for the Center for Public Integrity out of Washington. They did this extensive report talking about, the title of the report is usually 935 Lies, talking about documented lies told by the White House or representatives. That thing was in the paper one day and then gone the next. Now a guy like me, who again is a civilian, I see that kind of thing, and what happens, what's the deal with that? What happened to it? I work with Sunlight Foundation. They're interesting in that what their gig is that they fund the building of tools online for greater transparency or accountability in government. It's run by Ellen Miller, they're out of Washington as well, and they fund groups like maplight.org, the purpose of which is to do things like showing how money flows in Washington, let's say from lobbyists to congressmen, and what do they get, say, in terms of legislation or no-bid contracts and all that. Tangentially, one advertisement in defense of lobbyists, here's one new one for you. I've now spent time with them and talked even to some politicians and finding that most lobbyists are just people trying to get a fair shake for their clients. That's the nature of the political environment in Washington. There are some lobbyists who are pure community service lobbyists, and then there's a very small minority of lobbyists who are predators, basically. They're trying to get special privileges for their clients, sometimes trying to get them elected president. And those relatively few lobbyists have given the whole industry a bad name, and that's not fair. So here I am, will speak up on behalf of people who aren't popular, but that feels like the right thing to do. Through the folks at, I'm also now, having embraced my boring side, I'm on the board of Consumers Union. I'll be back here next week for a for a board meeting there. The deal there is that, speaking as a middle-aged guy, refrigerator reviews have become really important. Although, speaking also as a nerd, the reviews of high-end plasma or LCD TVs have become important. So Consumers Union is about that, but they're doing, in their own way, serious journalism. That's what those reviews are about. And Consumer Reports Online is a prototype for online journalism in the sense that they are pretty lucky. Their material is perceived as valuable enough that people will pay for it. But Consumer Reports Online, those folks are facing the same struggle folks here alluded to just minutes ago. I guess Jeff did. They're figuring out where do they put the wall between paid material and free material. No answers, but they're working on it. CU also does advocacy work, some investigative work on their own. For example, they have a group called, a site called Full Frontal Scrutiny. They're focusing on front groups, AstroTurf groups, whatever you like to call them, that focus in the consumer space. Like they've exposed groups like the Center for Consumer Freedom, which pretends to be grassroots, but it's not. It's run by industry representatives. They engaged the Center for Media and Democracy to do that, which oddly enough does Congresspedia, which is Wikipedia for Congress. They do that for Sunlight Foundation. And the Center for Media and Democracy also exposes political front groups, like Swift Boaters. They've written a pretty good expose on something called Freedom's Watch. And frankly, I'd prefer them to be targeted by Freedom's Watch, not me. So I'm supporting a number of these groups. I'm doing a number of things like that. And I'm tired of hearing myself talk, and I have to remember that brevity is the soul of wit.
Let me just do 2 questions, and then we'll move off to everybody here. I'm sure has tons of questions, being journalists. You care about journalism. I've been around Craig when he gets to what was the obvious question is, well, why are you killing it with Craigslist? But we won't go in there. He's not. The internet is changing the business dynamics of the press. And Craig came along and created something that enables people to directly connect with each other, which is really part of the press. So put that to the side. But you've been really involved with trying to do things like Sunlight and other things to care about the press. You just, because you're in journalism school today, you mentioned going to Berkeley, you gave a large, generous grant to Berkeley. What did you hope to accomplish with that, and what do you think journalism schools should be doing these days to improve our lives?
Well, first, you don't steal my thunder. I've been referred to as the Antichrist of print media, and I kind of enjoy that one, although I need to use it sparingly. We have the idea that, so we've worked with some of those folks for some years in the J School and computer sciences. We're trying to figure out now what they're going to be doing. The idea is to find new ways to use the net to both get news to people in ways that people will pay attention to, including crowdsourcing and that kind of thing. We're also trying to help people find new ways to pay for journalism, particularly investigative reporting. This is at a very, very early stage right now, and that's about as much as we know right now. The lead guy is Ken Goldberg, and in a way, we're waiting for him to figure out just what he's formulating right now, and there'll be more news in the future.
Does your work in customer service at Craigslist and dealing with not only the good people, but the people who need their meds or do bad things or all that, has your time at Craigslist improved or devolved your faith in your fellow man?
Here's an odd one, is that I found overwhelmingly that people are trustworthy and good. There are exceptions to that, but there's a much smaller number of bad guys than we normally think. I guess we've evolved to perceive threats way out of proportion to the actual presence of threats in our environment. Actually, one of America's most other influential newsmen, at least for me, Jon Stewart, said that you hear more from extremists because moderates have stuff to do. I also, Stewart is much smarter than people credited him, because he, after Obama made that speech on race, he said he was pretty shocked because for a brief moment, an American politician actually talked to us like we're adults. And you just don't get much of that these days. I think that probably hasn't happened for probably 45 years or so.